Hello.
Hey, how is it going?
It's warm. I'm in Arkansas right now.
Oof.
Yeah,
Cruddy's in Arkansas right now.
that's
Are
true.
you are you in the same are you in Arkansas for the same reason?
Yes. Yeah, we're at the same
Gotcha.
exercise.
Fun.
Mhm.
I don't miss it that much. Spent 8 years in Little Rock, up in Cabot.
Oh, sure.
Uh, yeah. You know what hasn't happened anytime recently?
What?
A tornado warning near my house. So
Fair. Fair.
enjoy.
Thanks. Thanks.
um, For the audience, Amanda Kollmorgan, Deputy IT Director for the Wisconsin Department of Military Affairs. Also, sounds like Army National Guard member.
Yep.
Nearly 20 years of military and civilian experience have convinced her that the hardest problems in cyber are rarely technical, they're human. I have to agree. She speaks, mentors, and leads with that conviction, building teams where people first isn't a slogan and where leadership is treated as a daily practice rather than a title. Growing the next generation of cyber defenders is the work she cares about most, which is probably why I bet you're running the exercises that are happening this week.
Oh, God, no. No, I don't. Hard pass. Sometimes you just need to show up and play.
For sure. Um, Amazing. Amanda, um, it is great to have you here. Um, I hope the it's cooler inside than I know it is definitely outside in Arkansas in July. Um, and I'm gonna hand it off to you if you're ready to
Sure.
go. If you, you've been around, you've been listening.
Mhm.
I've seen you backstage. So if you wanted to share your screen, you can run slides, or I can be your slide monkey if
I would
for
love for you to be my slide monkey if you don't mind.
I don't mind. But I'm gonna.
Are you there?
I was gonna say I'm gonna back away, and then Rihanna just did it for me. She's like, "Yeah."
All right. I think that's my cue to get started. Thank you. Welcome everybody, and thank you for coming or for being here at CyberLabCon, especially those of you who I know are ditching ShieldCon right now to attend. So I know that there's another track going on competing for your attention, so I'll do my best to make this worth your time. Like it was already mentioned, my name is Amanda Kollmorgan, and I spent over 19 years building and leading teams in high pressure, mission driven environments, whether that be military or state government and incident response. So today's session is something that I think that we don't talk about enough in our field, which is the human side of the firewall. It's not going to be a group therapy discussion. It's really about strategic leadership. And when I use the word strategic, I'll get on a soapbox about this later, but I genuinely mean strategic, not the flippant way we throw this word around our industry. It's about leading with a purpose, growing with intention, and recognizing that our greatest defense isn't our tools, it's actually our people. Just questions are welcome throughout. This is my first digital conference, so I can't promise that I'm going to be super great at recognizing them. But just find a way to digitally yell at me if you need to get my attention. Otherwise, I'll try to leave time at the end. But another thing that I've been working on building out as we dive into the content is some handouts for anybody who wants to practice some of the skills that we're going to talk about. So just please feel free to reach out if you want some of the content that I'm working on so you can facilitate some of these skills back at your places. Next slide. All right. So question on everybody's mind whenever they go to a talk, why are you here? In my opinion, we spend most of our careers mastering tools, chasing certifications, earning degrees. But I feel like that's really the primary focus. I'd be curious to know. Throw it in the chat. Who has attained a certification within the last 12 months? Now, I'd be equally as curious if out of the last 12 months, how many people have participated or been aware of any type of formal development plan happening within their organization that didn't include technical evolution. That it was more people centric and communication centric and human skill centric. In IT and cybersecurity, soft skills often fall to the bottom of that list or even off the list entirely. But those are the exact skills that build resilient, high functioning teams. Um, I think that it's important to recognize that that is the gap. The focus and the energy and the attention that these technical skills get, which are important. Don't get me wrong; like they matter, um, but the absolute lack of, hey, who are the people behind these technical skills, and how are we going to leverage them as part of a team? Because we're not doing this alone anymore. Um, so if any of you feel like you've experienced that, I promise you're not alone. This is really going to try to help navigate what to do in that scenario. If you're in an organization that just isn't really focusing on that, whether you're at a leadership level or just starting out at an internship level. So the things that we're going to cover over the next 30, 40 minutes is one, the leadership and mentorship gap in cybersecurity, why it exists and what it's costing us now. The impact of undervaluing soft skills backed by data and illustrated by real world problems, because we all like our data, and practical strategies, both individual and organizational, to build human-centered cyber teams that don't burn out and don't bleed talent. So really what kind of instigated me wanting to build this talk a couple of years back was in 2024, former National Cyber Director Harry Coker was at UW-Whitewater, and I had the opportunity to attend a briefing by him, but then a roundtable with his deputy. And something about that conversation really reframed how I saw our industry and how I think about our cyber workforce in general. I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper later in the talk, but it really changes where you invest if you're serious about closing the gap. Technical skills, I think, are going to be what gets you in the door, but leadership, communication, and mentorship are what keep people growing and turn capable individuals into trusted advisors and future leaders. And that's what this whole reboot, so to speak, is about. Next slide. All right, so a little bit about me, bit of context for why I'm maybe even slightly qualified to have this conversation, taking your time talking at you. By day, I'm the Deputy State IT Director for the Wisconsin Department of Military Affairs. We run a complex hybrid environment for our state employees who also support the National Guard. Wisconsin DMA is one of, I think, 3 states where we have a state component and a federal component jointly under the same state agency. So when I talk about leadership under pressure, that's, the desk that I'm sitting at. On the military side, I'm the NCOIC, or in civilian terms, the operations manager for the Wisconsin Defensive Cyber Operations Element. And that's the role that taught me what high stakes actually looks like and what good leadership looks like when the lights are red. So in my volunteer time, I'm an incident responder and a program and policy lead for the Wisconsin Cyber Response Team. We're a group of about 300 all volunteer personnel who respond to cyber incidents at local, county, tribal levels within the state of Wisconsin, and just try to help provide our services on people's, potentially worst days. So I think that I've had the opportunity to see, the full life cycle, the prevention piece, the detection piece, the response piece, and the recovery piece, and what makes a difference between a team that holds together and one that fractures, because I've seen both of those too. So I tell you all that not to flex, but to make it a point. I've worn the technical hat, I've worn the operational hat, and the leadership hat. And the thing that has moved the needle in every single one of those roles hasn't been technical depth. It's been how I handle people, how I listen, how I coach, how I deliver hard feedback, how I don't shy away from friction, and how I keep my own ego out of the way. Just a little bit about me personally, for anyone that cares. I am also quite the movie quote junkie and an audiophile. So if I drop a Princess Bride quote and you don't recognize it, it's a little disappointing. I'm not here as a guru or a life coach or anything like that. I'm just a fellow practitioner who is still figuring it out. And I'm hoping to make a difference for future generations to come. Next slide. I forgive you, Josh, just this once. Okay, so not long ago, IT and cyber teams lived in the back closet, right? So like literally the server room was a converted closet and the security folks worked next to the boilers. We were the people you called when something broke, And we liked it that way. Heads down, fix things, go home. That world is gone. Today, IT and cybersecurity are strategic enablers. We don't just keep the lights on, we decide what gets built, what gets shipped, what gets protected. Every major business decision now has a security dimension. We're moving from being troubleshooters to trusted advisors, and the CFO should be calling us before signing a vendor contract. The COO should loop us in on product launches, and the CEO should ask us about the regulatory landscape. We've had to become trusted advisors. We've had to move from the closet to the table. Digital transformation pulled tech leaders to the executive table. And once you're at the table, business alignment and communication aren't nice to haves anymore. They're core competencies. You don't get to be at the table without them. And if you get to the table and you don't have them, you're going to find very quickly you're going to be removed from the table. Here's the punchline though. The job description didn't really ever change. The development model didn't. And we're still training cyber professionals the way that we trained them in 2005. The result is that people are getting promoted into roles whose hardest demands aren't technical at all, and then we wonder why they struggle. That's the gap that we're going to spend a good part of this session on is talking about what I'm going to describe as accidental managers. Next slide. So let me call this out directly because I think a lot of people won't. Our field prioritizes hard skills: coding, incident response, pen testing, threat intel, forensics, et cetera, et cetera. Open any job description, count the technical requirements, and then count the leadership requirements. Or even if it's not leadership, count the communication requirements or the emotional intelligence requirements. That ratio is going to tell you what we generally tend to value in this industry. Soft skills are often sidelined in hiring, in training, and in promotion. I'd be curious to hear if this sounds familiar to anybody. Somebody crushes a red team engagement, and then they get promoted to team lead, and then within 6 months, everyone on the team is miserable because the new lead has never been taught how to actually lead. And I think that we experience this time and time again. It's a repetitive problem. Cyber culture rewards deep technical knowledge, and we give standing ovations to the engineer who reverse engineers a 0-day, which is awesome, not taking away from that at all. Like all the handshakes and high fives for that. However, we don't give standing ovations to the manager who runs a calm, productive post-incident review where everyone tells the truth, or the manager who is able to de-escalate conflict and get their team, getting along and treating each other like professionals, or the manager who is able to finally sway the higher leadership or the finance department into purchasing, a software solution that we desperately need in order to be more efficient. Both of those things are essential, but really only one of them generally tends to get the attention. Communication is often reactive, not proactive, and we send out these postmortem reports after the incident, and rarely say, "Hey, here's what I'm seeing on the horizon." Like we don't proactively approach problems or talk about them. We document what broke, but we don't curate what's evolving. Some strategic, ethical, and relation skills are overlooked almost entirely. And I'm going to take a real quick left field pivot here on this term strategic. I feel like strategic is our generation's synergy, and it drives me up a wall. And I think that we are constantly using this word with, much like in Princess Bride, that word doesn't mean what I think you think it means. And I think we need to really start as cyber professionals and leaders, or even people brand new in the door, really actually talking about what strategy is. There's a difference between strategy and operations and tactical work, and we have to just stop throwing it out like it's air. That said, the cyber world is dripping with strategic, ethical, and relational decisions. Surveillance versus privacy, automation versus judgment, vendor risk versus business need. Not even going to get into AI. We rarely train people, though, to how to have those conversations, not just to think about them, but to even communicate them and engage in them, especially when you're engaging in them with people who don't understand the technical component of that conversation. Emotional intelligence is absolutely needed. but rarely developed. Pull up any training catalog at your organization, count the emotional intelligence courses, count the technical courses, compare. Like I challenge you to actually do this, and then even take it a step further. If you pull up these emotional intelligence courses and you pull up the technical courses, which one has better content and which one has really surfacey content? The result, and it's here on the slide, is blind spots. That's what it boils down to. It's just blind spots in leadership, in business alignment, in how we show up to the people that we serve. And blind spots are expensive, both in money and in the talent that we lose. We're hemorrhaging people because we don't know how to treat them or lead them. Next slide. All right, so let me get specific about where this void actually shows up, because I think there's a really big misnomer about where the gap in the cybersecurity workforce is right now. Pardon. So circling back to that roundtable I mentioned with Cyber Director Coker and his deputy, at the time, we were talking about workforce development, and I went in expecting kind of like the usual conversations: more boot camps, more scholarship, more entry-level pipelines. And then the thing that came up and was said stopped me cold and really opened my eyes. The workforce gap in cyber wasn't then, and still isn't, entry level. It's middle management. And you have to think about what that means and the effect that it has. We've poured enormous resources into closing entry-level pipeline, and rightly so. We've built boot camps, scholarship programs, certification pathways, apprenticeship models. Entry-level talent is flowing in. We have so much of it. Meanwhile, the layer of leadership that bridges strategy and execution, which are the middle managers, is disappearing. So you have to ask yourself, why does this matter, right? Middle managers are arguably the most impactful leaders in any organization. They sit at the intersection of life experience, operational know-how, and current technical fluency. They translate strategy down, they translate reality up, they mentor the people coming in, and they advise the people running things. When that layer thins, the whole organization wobbles. So then here's what happens. I think it's a 4-phase problem. So we start with the gap. Digital acceleration pulls plus flattened organization structures widen the management gap. Companies cut middle layers in the name of efficiency, and then they can't figure out why nothing gets done well anymore. Like, why aren't we an efficient organization? We just must need more AI and automation. The Band-Aid, rapid promotions create what I call accidental managers. Strong technicians get promoted because they were the best on the team, but they get zero leadership training before they're handed a team. And we do this all the time. And then we wonder why teams underperform. And then the cost: burnout, miscommunication, stalled innovation, emotional intelligence gaps that surface across every team interaction. And people leave, not for more money usually, but because they're tired of being managed badly. And then the cycle: unstructured development perpetuates the pattern. The accidental managers who survive become the new senior leaders, and then they manage what they were managed, which is to say, poorly. And then the next generation inherits the same broken model. Drop it in the chat if you feel like you can, like, if this resonates with you, or if you have experienced this in your words are hard, your own organization. I know I have. We on the military side see this all the time, where you'll get a generation of these really great leaders, and then they all retire, and then there's this massive gap, and then people get promoted really quickly without ever having the chance to be mentored or taught how to be leaders, and then it just perpetuates this cycle, and it's really hard to break out of it unless you're intentional. So the good news is it's solvable. We just have to stop pretending that it's not a problem. Next slide. All right, so if you take, did you go 2 slides forward? Nope, never mind, you're good. Go back. Yep. All right. So let's put numbers behind this void. Leadership. And if any of you want any of my sources for this research, please ping me. Happy to provide them. 55% of leaders report gaps in communication and collaboration. Read that again. More than half. And when real world breaches get autopsied, when forensics writes the postmortem, the root cause is almost always communication, not a technical flaw. The classic pattern is the SOC analyst saw the alert, the engineer escalated it, the manager didn't realize the severity, or the manager realized but didn't have a clear escalation path, or the escalation path existed but nobody trusted the analyst's instinct because the relationship wasn't there. In any of those scenarios, the technical controls didn't fail, human systems did. Mentorship, and I think this is the one that I feel the most hard and fast on. This is the one I think that we absolutely underinvest in the most. Structured mentorship and coaching programs aren't bonus material. They are the load-bearing wall for cultivating future leaders and reinforcing a culture of growth, trust, and collaboration. Like, we have to do this. We are a small community. The IT and cybersecurity community is a small community. When one of us fails, the impact is global. I'd be surprised if there's not many people watching this right now that doesn't have some type of emotional reaction when I say CrowdStrike. When somebody makes a mistake, we all feel it. When somebody has a win, we all feel it. I mean, how many amazing GitHub repositories are out there that help us do our jobs? We're a small community, and we have to get passionate about mentoring each other. The keyword, though, is structured. Informal mentorship, find a mentor, sounds nice, but it really accomplishes very little. Structured mentorship has matched pairs, a defined cadence, learning objectives, and accountability. That's the kind that builds careers and retains talent. Caveat to that, a lot of people are under this impression that a mentorship situation has to be within the organization that you work for, or somebody who is older than you, or that you think has more skills than you, or vice versa, right? Like, you feel like you can only mentor somebody that is younger than you or is up and coming or whatever. Since I've been doing this talk, the amount of mentorship conversations that I've seen happening where, you've got somebody incredibly well established in our industry who reaches out to somebody less established but has a very specific skill that they want to grow in, or people that are the same age, or whatever the case may be. Mentorship doesn't have to fit into a box, but it does need to be structured. Soft skills, ranked lower in hiring and promotion than technical skills, but they're what builds trust, resiliency, and future ready teams. The thing we underweight is the thing that determines whether the team survives the crisis. Next slide. So if you take one visual home with you, take a photo of this slide or screenshot it or do whatever, I believe this is the competency stack that we should base the foundation of how we build our cyber future on. And you read it bottom up. At the base, you have personal effectiveness. That's communication, emotional intelligence, conflict management, self-awareness, self-management. That's the foundation. You have to have that. You have to build upon that. Above it, you have your academic competencies, which is your formal education and learning ability. Workplace competencies, which is your professionalism, teamwork, accountability, and the ability to get work done in a workplace. Your industry-wide technical competencies, which is the skill stack, which is common to all of cyber and IT. Your industry sector functional competencies, so the deeper specialization for your sector. Healthcare cyber is different from financial sector cyber, is different from public sector cyber, is different from ICS and OT, etc. Your occupation-specific requirements, which makes you good specifically at your role. And then at the top, management competencies, strategy, vision, executive presence, board communication. Here's the load-bearing point in all of this. Every higher level rests on the levels below. If personal effectiveness isn't there at the base, everything above wobbles. Think about the patterns that you've seen in your experience and in your lifetime. The brilliant technician who can't communicate the risk to a non-technical executive. Technical layer strong, base layer weak. The director who can't coach their team through a hard quarter. Management layer in place, base layer missing. The CISO who can't tell the board what they actually need to hear. Hit the top, never built the foundation. When we develop people, we tend to invest in that middle and top of the stack: certifications, domain training, leadership programs. But strength at the whole structure every time is determined by the bottom. And if you walk out of here today and audit your own development plan against this pyramid, I personally think you'll learn something useful about where you actually need to invest in next. Another quick mental detour I'm going to take on this slide is I made the comment about leadership training or leadership programs. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and knock on Franklin Covey or any of these other like really neat 1 day or 2 day, 3 day workshops, but it's also really important that, to me personally, when you walk away from this conversation, you don't sit here and think, oh, well, I just need to go take like a boot camp, or I need to go send my team to a boot camp, or wherever you fall on this leadership matrix, is whether you're an intern or an executive. That's not the answer. It is concerted, consistent, continual growth. It's my soapbox for that. Next slide. So this slide is your start tomorrow list. 6 moves that any individual person can make this week, not someday, this week. And I'm going to caveat this with, I think in our industry, we're really terrible at convincing ourselves we have to do everything all at once, like everything everywhere all at once. Pick one. It's really easy to sit here and say, well, I need to work on all these things, or I'm going to do all these things right now. Don't do that. It's unrealistic. It's unfair to yourself, and you're setting yourself up for failure. Pick one thing to work on and work on it consistently. So number 1, try to do a self-assessment. Audit your own communication, emotional intelligence, and coaching habits. Be honest. Tools that help: a quick 360 from trusted peers, a 15-minute journaling habit at the end of every day, or even just ask your the people that either report to you or that you report to. If you're a student, ask other people that are in your student cohort and say like, hey, what's one thing I could do differently? And just ask that. Leave it open-ended. You can't lead others or be led through territory that you haven't walked yourself. And I know that obviously being led through territory you haven't walked yourself is its own it's kind of what's the word? It's kind of contradictory, but you have to be willing to be open to being taken out of your comfort zone, right? And you have to be willing to lean on your experiences that you have had in order to be able to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. So for coaching or one-on-ones, ask for a one-on-one that goes beyond status updates. Again, whether you're the supervisor or the subordinate in the situation. Don't ask, what did you do this week? Or tell somebody what I did this week. Ask, what's getting in your way? What are you learning right now? Or again, like if you're the subordinate, hey, I need to tell you what's getting in my way. I need to tell you what I'm learning right now. And I think the most important thing to do, and this one's specifically for leaders, ask your people what they want to be doing 12 months from now, and ask your people what kind of leader they'd like to be. You'd really be surprised at the type of answers you get, especially if like your people aren't even in a pathway to leadership. And if you're not a leader and you are, you are in a non-leadership position, bring that up with your supervisor. And if you're a student, write it out. Make it part of like your career goals. Ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be? Obviously, if you're a student, probably 12 months from now, you're thinking about hopefully having a job. But then ask yourself, okay, like what do I want to be doing 3 years from now? Let's say I get the job that I want. What does that look like as I progress? And just constantly ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be? You don't have to be a leader. You don't have to ever want to actually be a manager. But the more you think about what type of leader you want to be, the better, one, the better individual contributor you're going to be. And 2, the better you're going to be able to help your peers grow with you across the workforce. So this is not just a leadership concept. Excuse me. If one-on-ones feel like status reports, they're not one-on-ones, they're meetings. And there might be somebody who's a boss or a manager in here right now that hears that and is going to be a little uncomfortable, but I think it's true. If it's a status report, it's a meeting. It's not a one-on-one. Feedback loops. Build growth plans with explicit two-way feedback, the kind that goes up and down, both ways. Once a quarter, sit with, whether it be your mentor, if you're not employed, or your student, sit with the person that you report to, sit with the person that reports to you, and say, what's one thing you'd like to see different from a managerial perspective? Paint that across if I'm managing you or if you're managing me, whatever the case may be. But listen to the answer and then actually do something about it. Put that plan into action. Get uncomfortable. Lean into the conversation you'd rather avoid. Right now in your head, I would bet $1 that there's a conversation you've been putting off, whether it's with a direct report, a peer, a boss, a family member, a friend, a teacher. The conversation you're putting off is probably one that matters the most, usually speaking. Schedule it this week. That's a challenge for you. Number 5, and this one is probably my favorite and the one I feel strongest about. Do not fear conflict. Healthy conflict surfaces issues before they fester. Avoidance is not professionalism, it's deferred cost. Patrick Lencioli's pyramid puts fear of conflict right above absence of trust as a team dysfunction. Productive conflict is a skill and it's learnable. For whatever reason, we are in a generation that is absolutely terrified of conflict. And it drives me absolutely up a wall because conflict is not inherently bad. And there's a literal book and a team building framework built on forming, storming, norming, performing. And for whatever reason, we've entered into this space where people are like, oh, no, we don't want to storm. Let's just be a family. We're going to be a family and we're all going to be friends. And we're going to do stuff together that nobody actually wants to do. Because that means that we don't have conflict, and conflict's bad. Get that out of your head. Get away from that thought process and stop being afraid of conflict. Now, don't be the kind of person that goes and yells at people because that's just not acceptable. Grown-ups shouldn't be yelling at grown-ups. There's so many reasons why, but you can absolutely engage in productive conflict. And some of the handouts that I'm working on, if anybody's interested in, is ways to go about facilitating productive conflict, whether you're the person engaging in the productive conflict or you're somebody who is supervising a team that just they need to figure their stuff out. Okay, because how many people have experienced it where there's some people on a team and whenever they're in a room, you can cut the tension with a knife and it just makes everybody uncomfortable. And it's just frustrating because your team could be 10 miles ahead if they just got over their crap. So stop being afraid of conflict. And separately to that, but in addition, we also have to get away from this concept that the workplace is required to be a family. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I am a very social person. I make friends with people that I meet in the elevator. I am all about, having friends and going out and doing stuff. But there are some people that I work with that I want nothing to do with outside of work. And that's okay. As long as I respect them as a professional and I treat them that way, we don't have to be friends. We don't have to want to hang out with each other. And really, at the end of the day, we don't even have to like each other. We have to respect each other. And one does not equal the other. There are a crap ton of people that I deeply respect that I personally cannot stand. They're just like a wet bag of tea leaves, but they're brilliant and I love the work that they do. So just keep that in mind. We have to stop forcing this family concept. Now, if you got a group of people at work that you want to go and throw axes together, that's great. It's awesome. It's a double win, but you can't force it. It just creates resentment. Anyways, back on track. Number 6, adjust. Reassess and adapt based on what's actually working. Once a quarter, write down what you committed to and what actually changed. And I recommend, especially you brand new to the brand new to the industry, people folks. Wow, I'm just captain of the struggle bus today. People brand new to the industry. I highly recommend you do this starting now and do it for the remainder of your career. Whether it's while you're a student, in a job, doesn't matter if you're an individual contributor, a contractor, or whatever, all the way up through executive. Do this. Earlier, we talked about doing that self-assessment, right? And like writing down things. Quarterly, make your plan for what you want to accomplish and then reassess. Write down what you committed to and what actually changed. Throw out the things that aren't moving the needle and then double down on what is. When we actually sit down and we take the time to write out, like, this is what I committed to for this last quarter, and this is what did happen, what didn't happen, and this is why. One, it helps us recognize what is actually our strengths, and a lot of time they're not what we thought they were. Two, it helps us recognize what's getting in our way. Three, it helps us just kind of realign and readjust what the priorities maybe should be. So do this quarterly. A lot of people are like, oh, you got to do it weekly or monthly or whatever. I have ADHD. I'm not doing that often. But I find that if you do it quarterly, it is frequently enough to be impactful, but it is not so frequent that it's impossible to make it a habit. So personal opinion on the quarterly piece. But either way, whatever your cadence looks like, actually sit down and reassess what you committed to for change and then, how you're doing with that. So, like I said, pick one of these 6, just one, just do one. Write it on the back of type it in your Notepad++ or write it in your notebook or whatever you want to do. Commit to it for the next 30 days. If it's the quarterly one, obviously commit to it for a quarterly. The important part to take away from this is that the win isn't doing all 6 perfectly. It's doing one consistently. And you're going to hear me say that a lot. You've already heard me say it a lot. Consistency is key. Next slide. All right, so now scale this up. 3 moves at the organizational level map to the same triad we saw on the data slide. You leaders in the room, you have to foster psychological safety. You have to make it safe to speak up, disagree, and surface mistakes without political consequences. This is the single highest leverage cultural layer in every organization. The data on this is absolutely overwhelming. Like, the research is mind-blowing. Here's how to do it practically. And now I know that there's non-leaders listening. And for those of you that are not in leadership position, it's still important for you to hear this because it could potentially shape how you think about leadership someday. The way that you do this practically is build retros and postmortems into the cadence of work, not just after incidents. The most impactful thing that I've been able to do in an organization is talk about things that have been going on for the last month on a reoccurring basis, because we can't wait to fix things until they break. That's why they break. Model it from the top. Leaders who openly admit mistakes openly create teams that admit mistakes openly. That was a lot of openly, but it's true. I take this approach when it comes to parenting, and I think it is 110% across the board as humanity, a golden rule. I believe this to be what should be the golden rule. You cannot expect behavior from people that you are not willing to model. Another way to word that is, you must model the behavior that you expect from other people. If you expect your employees to be a certain way or do a certain thing, and you are out here acting all wild and not doing that, we're not setting a good example here. What are they supposed to look to emulate? And same thing, we're like, really, even if you're not a leader, for peers, if you want like your team to be a certain way and you're over here just being 180 of that, maybe it's not the team that's the problem, right? We have to model behavior that we expect from others. And if you're not getting it right away, that's okay. It takes time and consistency and practice. Excuse me. Um, and we have to make sure that people feel safe to fail. Reward the person who flags the problem, not just the person who solves it. It takes a good amount of courage these days to bring up a problem, especially before it hits the fan. Make sure you're building communication habits into daily stand ups, not just what did you do, but what do you need, right? Mentorship. We have to, I said this before and I'm going to say it again, we have to structure intentionally. Formal mentorship and coaching programs that bridge technical skill and leadership readiness. Invest in your future mid level leaders. You have to go about, if you are in a management position and you have a team that reports to you, it is imperative for the future of our community that you coach every one of them as if they are going to be in your job someday. Even if they want nothing to do with it, you still need to prepare them. It's unfair to them not to. It's unfair to our community not to. That's the biggest layer that Director Coker flagged. The layer that your future depends on, that our community future depends on. What good looks like. Matched pairs based on growth objectives, not just availability. Defined cadence, at least monthly, ideally with structured topics. Learning objectives written down at the start and reviewed at the end. Time protected on the calendar, not stolen by urgent work. That's a tough one, but people have to be a priority. Soft skills, so we have to prioritize in hiring and promotion. Hiring and promotion. Make emotional intelligence, communication, and coaching ability, visible criteria in your scorecards, not just background noise, not fillers, not the 10% other duties as assigned, high priority scorecard metrics. And what this would look like in practice is adding a soft skills section to your hiring rubric with the same weight as technical skills. Promotion criteria explicitly including ability to coach others for any leadership role. Behavioral interview questions that get at how candidates handle ambiguity, conflict, and feedback. These will compound. 6 months in, you'll notice. 2 years in, your team is unrecognizable. I promise you that. None of these moves require new tooling. All of them require commitment from leadership to actually do them. All of them require commitment from you to actually do them. And that's the hard part. This is how you close the middle management gap, though. Not with another boot camp, not with a Franklin Covey session, with intentional development of the people you already have. I should probably stop naming that. I'm going to get sued one of these days. Next slide. All right. If you remember nothing else, remember these 3 things. Technical skills open doors, soft skills build careers. One gets you the interview, the other gets you the trajectory. The technician who learns to lead becomes irreplaceable. The technician who doesn't peaks early. We all know one. Leadership gaps and soft skills deficits are real and they're costly. Measured in retention, measured in innovation, measured in incident response quality, and measured in every metric you care about, including eventually your bottom line. Rebooting cyber culture starts with people, not platforms. You can buy every tool on the vendor floor and still lose the war if you haven't invested in the humans operating those tools. The platform you need to invest in most is your team. I do this work because I've watched what happens when we get it right. When a quiet engineer becomes a confident communicator, and when an accidental manager grows into a real leader, and when a team that was hemorrhaging talent stabilizes and starts attracting the best people in the field. That's the reboot. That's the win. And it starts with us, the practitioners and the leaders in this room. So that's the majority of my talk. Next slide. If anybody's got any questions, I finally figured out how to pull up the chat. Otherwise, I'm happy to turn it over and y'all can reach out to me. I've got a feedback QR code on the next slide with my Discord handle. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Hey, Amanda. I
Oh,
figured
hey.
I'd come on and help out with Q&A.
Thank you.
Um, I agree with everyone else in the chat. That was amazing.
Thank you.
um, yeah. I am also scouring. I was trying to keep up with questions along the way. A lot of comments, a lot of agreement. Um, does anyone have any questions for Amanda?
If while people are thinking of questions, one, I guess, like final driving home point I could make, since there's a little bit of time left, is um, I've never done a digital conference before, but a lot of what my talk is, I would say probably 25 to 30% of my talk is actually very based on audience feedback. And so retooling it a bit for this, obviously I can't see people's hands or their reactions, but one thing that I think still makes a difference in the way people feel about this conversation is if you take the time while we're all virtually sitting here, and just like close your eyes really quick and think about the best leader you ever had, and just like, we'll give it like 30 seconds. So if you think about the best leader you ever had, normally people can like kind of come up with one, right? Now I want you to take, like, we'll do 30 seconds of dead air again, and I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about the worst leader you ever had. And oh, give it a little more time. All right, so normally what happens in person is you can watch the reactions on people's faces throughout the crowd, right? And I always venture to assume, and it's generally tends to be accurate, where it is way easier to think of your worst leader than it is to think of your best leader. They come to mind so much faster. And the thing that I like to tell people, you know, if nothing else from this conversation hit home or resonated, or if you were just kind of like, if you take home none of that, and it's just, you're like, oh, more talks about feelings. um if somebody came to mind for you that was the worst leader you ever had, I would have to assume almost always you had some type of physical reaction to that, whether like you felt a little like angry, or like it was almost comical because like, oh man, they were just that bad, or some people like actually start feeling a little nauseous, or they like their heart races, whatever. If you had some type of physical reaction to thinking about your worst leader ever, and you take nothing else, if you completely dump every word that came out of my mouth this whole time, never make anybody else feel the way that your worst leader made you feel. If you do that and only that, that is still a win. I see some great books on leadership, soft skills that I recommend. So, Getting to Yes, I think, is an amazing book. I don't want to get off on another soapbox, but I think our generation has like really perverted the meaning of getting to yes. Now we throw it around, and usually it just means that somebody's getting their way. Um, I think getting to yes is like, when I say getting to yes, I mean it the way that it's intended in the book. I highly recommend reading it. The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, I think, is an amazing book, and very empowering book. And then I would also say, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time for this curse word, but it's literally the book title, "The Life Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck." I would say those three things have been really powerful, and then I've got a whole nother list that I can share out as well. How can a newbie implement the principles in this talk when inspiring to land their first full-time professional cybersecurity role, especially? Okay, that's a really great question. So I would say the best way that you can implement the principles in this talk, and then do you want me to stop at 45 or 50? Can't hear you.
I'm muted. There we go. This is the last talk on this track. So the keynote, I think Mike Miller, he might be in here or listening, is on at the top of the hour, and I
Okay.
don't need to introduce him. So feel free to keep going because this
Okay.
is gold, and I love it.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll just answer these questions. Also, I apologize if I'm starting to look wild. I turned off the AC in my room so it wouldn't be so loud. Um, I would say the best advice I have for a newbie implementing the principles in this talk when aspiring to land their first full-time professional role is go out. You don't have to be employed to practice these skills. Go out and get yourself involved in some of these amazing cybersecurity communities that we have out there. I know, like in the Chicagoland area, there's BurbSec, there's DC 608, and like the Madison, Wisconsin area. There's, and obviously I could talk about the ones where I'm from, but there's a ton of
CyberCon,
them.
besides Milwaukee.
Yep, exactly. Besides BurbSec Minneapolis, I mean, there's if you're not sure, reach out to anybody, that was a speaker or facilitating, just drop your location and I'm sure somebody can find something for you. But get involved in those organizations because one, they're going to network, and two, you're going to be able to find mentors, and three, you're going to have opportunities to practice some of these skills. And the other thing I would recommend doing is getting involved in some type of volunteer organization, whether that be ISACA or InfraGard or any of these other Ginger Hacker or CyberLab Speaks. Like, get yourself involved in an organization that you can actively contribute. One, it'll help you grow. Two, it helps the organizations. But then three, you also get that opportunity to like really work on those skills, and it builds your portfolio, right? It builds your experience portfolio. So it's a three-way win really. And find ways to step into leadership roles. Again, even if you're not a leader or if you're not employed, there are a lot of, like, for example, local libraries who have no IT staff or support who would love somebody who would come in on like, once a weekend to like teach a smart home computing class, or even if they provided some like smart like professional computing to the library staff or whatever. Like you can reach out to organizations to provide. No, I unless you like that is your actual job, I highly recommend not charging people for these things, but that's a separate conversation. But like if you're looking to break into the community, or I'm sorry, into the industry, go out and do the things you're looking to do but for free. um and then let's see, what else is there. Am I familiar with Chris Voss? Yes.
Never split the difference.
Huh?
Is that Chris Voss? Never split the difference. The FBI
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
Good one.
Getting to yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love that one.